There are a lot of fears about the increasing legalization of marijuana, and there are a lot of fears about what it'll do to you teens. Will marijuana be legal in different contexts, recreational, medical? Will that lead to more of you illegally smoking pot because it's just more available? There's a lot of evidence that that's not the case. We're going to talk about some of the new evidence. This is from the Journal of Adolescent Health. They did a study where they compared 20 years of data from the CDC and Prevention's Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance Survey in states that had legalized medical marijuana, and they compared them to neighboring states that had not legalized it, and they found that the legalization of marijuana for medical purposes does not result in greater illicit use among you youths. I don't think Fox News is going to care or report on this, but if you're worried, perhaps legitimately as a parent, that a 14-year-old is going to get their hands on some medical marijuana, fear not. The evidence shows that that is not a significant risk.
That's great, and I think it's also really consistent with previous research that shows, medical marijuana hasn't really changed people's behavior towards purchasing illegal marijuana or anything like that. Just because you legalize something doesn't mean you're going to change the criminal activity behind it in a negative way. If anything, it positively impacts that, because now you can go to a medical marijuana shop to get marijuana. You don't have to go to the dealer that also sells crack and cocaine. You separate the two.
Exactly. But I feel bad for the crack dealer. What's going to happen to his business now?
Hopefully his business
his family's
goes
going to be out
down.
in the street. Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe he'll go legit. I mean, if you already have all these contacts and you're known as like a reputable dealer of marijuana, just fucking get a loan from like the Small Business Association of the government or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
start up a storefront. Why not? You already apparently care a lot about the industry. You might as well do your duty and pay some taxes on it. But anyway, yeah, I think this is good news. I've been clear 100 times before that I think it should be totally legal. I don't know what age you set it at, because I don't think 11-year-olds are responsible enough to decide if they should be doing pot. But I think that it's not nearly as dangerous as people say it is. It's certainly not as dangerous as things that are currently totally legal all over the country. Even if there's a risk that a 12-year-old is going to get their hands on some vodka, we still legalize it for 21-year-olds. And this should just be more evidence that it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah,
there's also evidence that if you are, say, 12 and if you're age 12 and under, then medical marijuana can potentially impact the development of your brain. But after age of 12, there's sort of this threshold where it no longer has any sort of long-lasting consequences. Yeah. So I think you bring up a fantastic point about age. You should be aware that just because it's like legal and it's for medical use, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's perfectly okay at any age or when you're 7 or 8. I mean, it seems obvious, but if you're 12, 13 and thinking of trying it, maybe do a little more research and see how it's going to impact you.
Yeah, and look, that is a totally good point to bring up, because some people will be worried exactly about that. But again, as I always do, and I know that this is sometimes frustrating, like, it should be irrelevant if it causes long-term, like, even if it, amongst 25-year-olds, if it destroys your brain, you are allowed to make that decision. And by the way, there are already tons of things that are totally fine legally to consume that absolutely destroy your brain or your body. Yeah. We eat food that wrecks our bodies, destroys our metabolic system, causes obesity and cancer and diabetes and things like that, metabolic syndrome.
And we don't
It's totally legal to do that.
And
I can drink tons of vodka. I can destroy all my brain cells. It's totally legal. Why shouldn't it be legal to do it with some pot?
Totally.
Totally.